dropped, and it's showtime from downtown Winnipeg.
See the blast. Moves back. Scores! Shankly wires it. Scores!
What a stop by Hellebuck.
Kyle Connor. Jets go bang, bang, bang.
Welcome to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, it's playoff time, and what better way to make use of an 8:30 p.m. Central puck drop here in Winnipeg than to create the 160th episode of Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to be joined by Linda Cohn, a longtime American sportscaster, part of ESPN's NHL coverage, in just a little bit. But first, it's Jamie Thomas and Paul Edmonds joining me, Mitchell Clinton, for this episode. And guys, we sit here recording this before Game 4. This series between the Winnipeg Jets and Vegas Golden Knights has been about as close as we expected it to be, hasn't it?
Yeah, and let's hope that it's a little bit closer after Game 4. And I don't mean that, with my Jets pom-poms waving around here, but I just think that a lot of people expected this series, including the Winnipeg Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights, frankly, to go quite a distance. It wasn't going to be over shortly. So if it goes to 2-2 after Game 4, then you're going to have 6 games. And I think that's kind of right around that sweet spot where everybody thought it was going to get to, and maybe a 7th as well. Yeah, it's been close for a lot of reasons. I think goaltending's been close. Specialty teams have been close. Top lines have been close. Your unsung heroes have been close in all of this as well. The only thing that hasn't been close is the Winnipeg Jets have incurred an injury to their top defenseman and an all-star. They also have one of their top forwards not playing in this, and yet Vegas has gone unscathed through this series so far, and leading up to it, they got one of their stars back to start the series, and that was Winnipegger and captain Mark Stone for the Vegas Golden Knights. So that would be one of the differences for me. Whether that becomes a major difference in how this series unfolds, I guess remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's really hard to see outside. Yeah, it's hard to see who's dominating in what department. But coming in, clearly you thought Connor Hellebuck had that the Jets had the massive advantage in goal for Laurent Brossoit, who was making his first playoff start in Game 1. But I think Laurent Brossoit, the former Jet, has really amped up his game and does not look out of place whatsoever. You can understand why the Golden Knights have put this opportunity on his back, and he's answered it and then some.
And Paul, you mentioned, the massive loss on the blue line in Josh Morrissey leaving the game early in Game 3. Nikolai Ehlers hasn't played in this series, and yet here we are. It could be argued over the 9 regulation periods that have been played. Winnipeg's maybe been the better team for 5. Really well in playing really well in Game 1. They really liked their third period in Game 3 and their first period in Game number 2. So we'll split this up. Paul, we'll start with you on the back end. Speaking of the Josh Morrissey part of things, how do you think they handled the challenge in Game 3, dropping down to 5 defensemen, and how do they move forward here?
Well, number one, they handled it very well, because I think sometimes when you don't have an opportunity to think about a situation like that and you're just thrust into it, you just have to kind of survive, right? You have to just either pick it up and go, or you're going to melt, and no professional athlete wants to melt. So they handled it just fine. I think the minutes were soaked up. Neil Pionk took the majority of them. He was over 41 minutes. But then you get other guys like DeMello and Dillon at 30. This is the interesting part about what went on here a couple of years ago, right? You lost all those defensemen, and we don't need to talk about that again, but you lost all those defensemen, and then Kevin Cheveldayoff and his management group went out and got Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon. And this is the kind of reason as to why you went and got those upgrades on that back end, right? You became, number one, more experienced. You became better at moving the puck and more physical when it comes to Nate Schmidt and moving the puck, and Brendan Dillon being more physical, and then both. So you can absorb the loss of your all-star defenseman much easier. But that's a one game only. You can't run 5 defensemen in a series. It's physical. Every time you touch the puck, somebody's going to finish their check on you. And it could be a rub, it could be a little bump, it could be something, but there's going to be some physical engagement. And then, of course, you get the double overtime nature of how these minutes were spread out. But I think one thing that Winnipeg has really done a good job of is spreading out the minutes as they've gone along during the regular season. It's not like your 2 top pairs have played the majority of the ice, and then your third pairing has kind of been out there sporadically. You've kind of run and rotated your 3 pairs. So a guy like Dylan Sandberg gets an opportunity to play all those extra minutes, and he looks just fine. Now, save for the tick off the skate and the game-winning goal, I get all of that. But, there's a reason why he's out there in overtime, and you're confident with putting him over the boards in overtime. I think the defense has handled this very, very well. The proof in the pudding will be how they go forward in this series. And missing what did Nate Schmidt call him, the game changer or the difference maker. That was the quote that he used. Losing him is going to certainly be impactful in a negative way at some point. But can you absorb it, move on from it, and let's see who comes in that spot and gives them an opportunity, whether it be Kyle Capobianco, whether it be Logan Stanley, to make a name for himself in these playoffs. I think that the defense has done just fine in absorbing it so far, but there's still a lot of series to go. Let's see how they handle it after today.
Logan Stanley, 8 games of playoff experience and 2 goals in a game 4.
Both in Montreal.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see how that all plays out, depending on when you listen to this podcast. Like I said, recording just before game 4. The other injury is up front, Jamie, and that's Nikolai Ehlers. Still looking for medical clearance. He's practiced here and there. He wants to play.
Right.
I mean, everybody would want him to play as well. How have the forward group handled his absence?
I think, you just start first and foremost with the Adam Lowry line, right? You lose Morgan Barron for a quick stint while he's getting stitched up there in game number 1. The legend of Morgan Barron comes in, but Adam Lowry leading the team with 4 goals as we speak of this morning, one of the biggest goals, tying the game up after being down 4-1 there in the third period, scoring with just over a minute left just under a minute left, sorry, in that third period in game number 3. He's been tremendous, so that third line's filled in nicely. Mark Scheifele on the right wing, that experiment has run its course. Obviously, they got what they wanted out of it, so now he's with Vladislav Nemeskov and Blake Wheeler, and Nino Niederreiter has moved up with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor. What I've liked, is, speaking of acquisitions, the acquisition of Vladislav Nemesnikov and Nino Niederreiter before the trade deadline. First off, you're adding a ton of playoff experience. Nino Niederreiter has lots, so does Nemesnikov, but the ability of both those players to move around, play the wing, play the center, up and down the lineup has really been valuable for this team already in these playoffs. So, and then the fourth line has really flexed his muscle in game number 3. Sacramento line has been a man-child, like just mad. I can't even describe how great he's been this series. Kevin Stenlund has been fantastic as well on top of that. And so I think the forwards have handled it well, but would you love to have Nikolai Ehlers on your roster right now? Absolutely. You need that game-breaking speed. You'd love to have him on the power play, coming down the wall, off the wall, sorry. So they've done a great job, but I'm not sitting there. Same thing with Josh Morris. You're not sitting there like you're sitting there, you can live without him. You don't want to play without him. You just find a way to play without him. And same thing goes with Nikolai Ehlers. Man, would you love to have him back in it. Love the back and forth between him and Rick Bowness before game 1 and really game 2, but not playing in game number 4 again.
All right, Jamie, you chatted with Linda Cohn a little bit earlier. Likely an honor to chat with someone who's been a familiar face and a name for millions of hockey fans.
Oh my gosh! When Paul and I ran into Linda Cohn,
I'm embarrassed.
When Paul and I saw Linda Cohn, she came up and introduced herself before Game 1 in Vegas, and Paul was laughing pretty much the way it is right now because
we fanboyed.
We 100% fanboyed. I haven't done that in a long time.
Oh, I never do that.
Yeah, you never. I do.
Yeah.
You do never.
Yeah.
So to see you the way you were after seeing Linda, she's just such a strong, commanding presence, and Paul and I talked to her for a little bit, and you'll hear in this conversation I had with her. I had no idea that she played. I knew she played goal. I knew she had tried out for the Florida Panthers for their backup practice goaltender a long time ago. There was a feature on that. Had no idea she played goal for a boys team in high school. So she's got a great story about that. Also, great insight on her relationship with her dad and what got her to start loving hockey, and of course her love for the New York Rangers afterwards. But it's a great listen. So here it is.
Shop where the players shop. Jets Gear and TrueNorthShop.com are your authentic team stores. Make sure to stock up on all your favorite Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose merchandise today. Visit one of the 5 Jets Gear locations or shop online at TrueNorthShop.com.
Hi, this is Adam Lowry, and you're listening to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
So when and where did your love affair with hockey begin? And I guess I've already answered because you're from New York.
Yeah, no, exactly, because there's always sports passion there. You know, my dad, he's no longer with us, sadly, but he was a huge influence in my life and my passion for sports. You know, and that's where I really, you know, I love all sports, specifically like the NFL, like my teams are the Giants, the Knicks in the NBA, and then the Rangers. But actually, you know, if it wasn't for my dad downstairs, you know, with the big TV, maybe it wasn't as big as they are now, but back in the day, cursing at the Rangers, you know, not reaching the expectations year after year, I never would have got myself, you know, connected to the Rangers, because growing up on Long Island, I actually discovered the Islanders first. And this was, you know, when they first started, like, you know, back before their heyday, when they were just figuring it out. And I used to listen to the Islanders on the radio for their, when I realized hockey existed, it was like in, you know, I'm dating myself, but who cares? Like in, you know, the year after they were born. So it was like 1973, 74. And, you know, of course, you know, that season, they didn't make the playoffs. It was only their second year in existence. And so my dad was watching the Rangers in the playoffs. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch the Rangers, whatever. And then I realized, Jamie, how much more exciting the Rangers were and how much more exciting playoff hockey was. And then I just never looked back. Sorry, Islanders. But I became a Ranger fan from that time on. You know, and and you know, I'm big on that. You know, I've been obviously a national broadcaster for decades, but I don't think it's right to lose your fandom. You know, you don't have to wave your pom-poms, but it's what helped you become who you are. And if it wasn't for my passion for the teams and the sports that I love, I never would have been in this business for so long and wanting to achieve and succeed to the best of my ability.
I know you'll appreciate my story, and you can probably collaborate with it a little bit, but my dad used to get so mad at the Calgary Flames when I was growing up. He would throw beer cans. So on Father's Day, we got him a foam brick so he could throw it at the TV set. So I'm sure you understand those moments with your dad getting so frustrated with his beloved Rangers.
Yes, and from my dad, it was more of what he said as opposed to his actions. We'll just leave it there. You can leave it up to your imagination. He had one favorite word, and it was used as a noun and an adjective and a verb.
God love him for his creativity, though, right? So it's just like, so he could become so creative with the term.
Exactly.
Newfield High School, you played goal with the boys team. What was the reaction like when you made the team?
Yeah, you know, it's really amazing to me because why hockey is so important and always has been for my life. When I realized I had some skills playing goal, I used to play street hockey with the boys. That's when it all started, you know. You know, you hear this all the time, right? But back in the day, it wasn't that common for, you know, a girl to be put in net and playing street hockey with the boys. And I didn't even know how to skate. And I credit my mother, who found a league when I was 14 years old on Long Island that let girls play. But I can only be allowed to play with boys that were significantly younger. So let's put it this way. When I was 14 and first starting, and I got my first pair of goalie skates, and I learned how to skate with goalie equipment on, by the way, I had to play with boys that were 8 and 9 years old. That was the only way they'd let girls play. And, you know, and then each year I graduated to the 12-year-olds, and then, you know, and then when I was 16, I was up to the 13-year-olds. And then, you know, I actually tried out for my high school team as a junior when I was 16, and I opened up some eyes then. So a lot of the guys realized I was around, and I played, and so that really helped. So then in my senior year when I tried out again, and then I remember you know, there was no place for me to change, so I was changing in the ladies' room. I remember the coach and the manager knocking on the door and saying, "Can we come in?" I go, "Yes." And then they told me the news that I made the team as a backup, and I'm like, "Oh my God, so cool. I won't let you down." And why I bring up the whole song and dance of that is because it really, I was a kid with very low self-esteem growing up, and hockey gave me something to feel good about, especially within me. that I was good at and kept my mind on something and something to look forward to, right? Playing games. But also, it's hard to say, but, I mean, it really helped me in the business that I'm in now, year after year, taking on new challenges. I still get butterflies. I still get nervous. And it's a process I go through. And maybe it's the crazy goalie thing, but, man, you know, you go through it so you can have that high. And I think if it wasn't for me being a goalie, I never would have been and succeeded as I have in this business that we're in. Seriously.
Who was more nervous watching your games, your mom or your dad?
Yeah, right. You know, that's a good point. I would say both. Probably my mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was the one that it took me years to convince her that I wanted to play hockey. I mean, she thought, obviously, that I would get hurt. But it's funny because early on in my life, you know, I really love music, too. Like, I love pop music. Like, even before sports and at the same time as sports, I would have a radio all the time on, listening to music. And so I bring that up because I always wanted to play the drums and when I was little.
A goalie and a drummer. Whoa.
Right. And this was before I was a goalie. So I always wanted to play the drums. And my mother said, no, that's not ladylike. You're going to play the violin. And that, Jamie, did not last long. My violin. And so this time around, when I said I wanted to play hockey and I'm pretty good at this goalie thing, and then she went along with it.
Right.
And that was good. She was the one that was taking me to, you know, practices and things, you know, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. What did you love most about playing goal, or what do you still love most about playing goal?
I love the fact that that it's all up to you. And I'm willing to risk being, you know, the one that lets in the bad goal for the incredible high you get for making the big save to keep your team up by one. I mean, there's nothing better, right? So that's what I love about it. Yeah. I'll tell you.
Do you love going back?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I want you to finish your story because I'm going to ask you about when you were the Panthers for backup goaltender for a day, but continue your story.
Yeah. But no, I was just saying, like, you know, talking to Connor Hellebuck today was the first time I was able to really talk with him. Yeah. And I talked to him about the whole mental health journey and the books for kids and the whole thing. And, you know, and of course, for people who don't know, it's a very important subject for him. And, you know, last 10 years, he calls it a hockey skill, as you know, Jamie, to work on your mental health. And being a goalie, I get exactly what he was saying. And he says he let that, and that goes into all the skills, what he's learned, that's helped him become a Vezina Trophy winner, and has helped him in real life. And, you know, I really related to that today when I spoke to him about that, because that's how I feel. I wish people were more aware of that back then when I played in my little world of playing. But fascinating.
Okay, so on that subject of Connor Hellebuck, does he get the love that he gets north of the border, south of the border?
You know, he should get more.
Mm-hmm.
He should get more.
I agree.
It's like, you know, he's the best player on this team. And he has been for years, really, because he is the guy that even the great scorers on this Winnipeg Jets team look to, feel comfortable that they can do what they have to do, knowing they have Connor Hellebuck in goal. You know, he continues to amaze them. The way his game and how hard he works to bring his game to the next level. So he should get more attention. I'm glad at least he's got one Vezina on his resume. You know, he's still out to win it all. That's something that means everything to him. That knows how close he came in 2018, obviously.
Sure did. But as we record this, the Jets are about to take on the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 1 of their first-round playoff series. So after a long hiatus, ESPN and the NHL get back together. Who was more excited, you, Steve Levy, or John Buccigross?
I don't know. I can't get into those two heads, especially for Steve. He's crazy. Levy, I don't know. I won't go there, but I think I was, because I think I am. They'll all say they are, but to me,
I can hear it in your voice.
I've always kept the game alive. It's always been top priority for me. Butchie, just an amazing talent, John Butchergross, but he had that outlet with college hockey, and I'm not into.
Right.
I respect college hockey and everything about it, but that's his jam. For me, it's always been the National Hockey League. It's always been the pros. It's always been the best in the world. And so I've always been on top of it and kept it alive on ESPN as best I could. And, it's great. The hockey community, the players, now that I'm out and about, they realize that, and they respect me for that, and they like me for that, and they get it. They hear it in my voice like you're hearing it. And to me, that's all that matters. I think it's just, to me, that's a win. That's all I care about, really, that the hockey community knows that I'm one of them.
You've dealt with athletes in all sports. When you talk about hockey players, what makes them unique when you talk to other people that don't know the sport as well as you do?
Well, they're the nicest athletes in the world, for goodness sake. I mean, I like to use this analogy. It's because they've carried their own bags since they were 5 years old. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And those bags are heavy, and they're taught in this game, that they have to be accountable for what they do, and it comes at an early age. And they just have such respect for those in and around the game. They're just different. Not to say, there aren't great, wonderful human beings that play other sports, and there are, but there are more of those types that play in the National Hockey League, much more.
Yeah, I agree. And we're like anybody's listening, we're not knocking out their athletes. It's just a uniqueness
no
to
way,
hockey
because
players.
there are amazing stories from the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, and Major League Baseball. But when you ask anyone what makes the hockey player different if they don't know, it's just how nice they are. And it's like when some of my colleagues are not used to covering hockey, who have had the opportunity, let's say, to do a Sports Center interview with one of the players or something, and then they're like amazed, that the player actually seems engaged in doing this.
Good call on that one. How often do your fellow anchors at ESPN come to you for your hockey knowledge? Because I imagine you'd be like the Dalai Lama of hockey knowledge at ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, that does happen. But they're also, it's so great, it's also great because they want to learn, right? Those who don't follow it religiously, right? So that's how I look at it. And I think it's a great thing. And I think, it's the only one of the ways to grow the game. Don't frown on people who don't know or didn't grow up with it. See, I have an emotional connection. I played and I have an emotional connection with, like the Rangers, or, with my dad when, watching the games with him. And I think you need that in any sport to really get it, to understand it. So don't frown upon people who've loved hockey, who've been blessed, like all of us, to have it a major part of our life and our family. Don't frown upon others that didn't have that opportunity, and at least they're trying to learn. And it may take some time, but I think the game is trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Well said. Speaking of emotional connections, Mark Messier, captain your New York Rangers to the 1994 Stanley Cup. How are you enjoying having him at ESPN as an analyst?
Yeah, I can't believe it. I still can't. I wish, I'm based in L.A., so I don't work with him a lot. But the first year I did come out to Bristol a couple of times, and I was able to be on the set with him doing intermissions and everything. And I still pinch myself. And I'll always remember the picture. I took many pictures with him, but the picture I took with him in the Bristol hockey studio that when we first opened it last year. And I said, "This is still amazing, a dream that you're here with us." And he goes, "It's a dream that I'm standing next to you, Linda. I've watched you for so many years." I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's lay off. But he was serious. But I was like, I just don't get it when guys like this say that to me. He is the Messiah to me. I told him that. He is the man. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, 1994. And it was great. My dad was still around then, and he got to see it. And I remember I was at Madison Square Garden. And you're not going to believe me, Jamie, but I drank from the Stanley Cup that night. I somehow got into the post-player first of many parties they had, the one that they had at the bottom of Madison Square Garden. The cup was there, and I drank from the cup the night they did.
Gosh.
I know. It was. I always said it was up there with, having my, giving birth to my 2 children. I mean, that's how big that was.
What did your dad say after that? What did your dad say after that?
He couldn't believe it. Yeah, he couldn't believe it. He was just happy for me that I was there. And then I told him, he was in Florida at the time, but it was great. It was just, but yeah, Mark Messier, I still think he's underrated to this day, believe it or not, with all the Stanley Cups. But what he did, he was everything for that team. He basically took over as head coach as well in a big spot. When Mike Keenan just let him address the team, and the guarantee and all of it. It was all about, Mark Messier and, of course, Mike Richter and Brian Leach and Adam Graves, They all made it happen. They're all of them. They all were great. But that was an all-time great team. And sadly, it fell apart after 1 year.
Yeah, but you got the cup. You got to drink out of the cup, so I think it's okay at that point. I think lots of people would die for that opportunity. I said I would keep you for 15. It's at 18 right now, just under a full period of hockey. One last one for you. Is this your favorite time of year?
Yes, it is. The only thing that the only thing that would make it, I think, really more interesting and frightening was back in the day when, I'm not saying best of 3 in the first round, but a best of 5. I think a best of 5 in the first round would add a little juice because
I remember best of 5. I remember the best of 5 in the opening round. It was crazy.
It was crazy. And if you're as great as you say, you should win that series, right? In a best of 5.
Yeah.
Right? And because I just think the first round takes too damn long. I think that's, it's a little pet peeve of mine, but I think, that's the way to jumpstart, the whole thing. Because then, it just seems to take, it's great. It's still the best postseason ever, by any sport. And I think, it is what it is. But I think for me, I'm also, I do love the NFL too, because I grew up loving the Giants with my dad in the NFL. And, their postseason, because it's one and done, is also, up there and great to watch as well. But there are different aspects to the NFL, much more betting involved, so much more going on with that. Not that hockey, shies away from that, but you know what I mean. But it is the greatest time of year. It's just so much fun. But yeah, I would like a best of 5 in the first round. That'd be fun.
Well, as a broadcast partner of the NHL, I'm sure you have a line to Gary Bettman, so maybe he'll listen.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thrilled.
So I have a Rangers Cup in my lifetime, thank God. When are the Winnipeg Jets going to make this happen for their beloved fans?
I'm sure they would love it, and we would love to have you north of the border for the whiteout. So hopefully you're around for Game 4 of that series. So we'll cross our fingers for you, and thank you so much for doing this, and it's a thrill to talk to you today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Good luck with this and everything else that you encounter.
Well, we mentioned that it's the playoffs and there's lots to get done before an 8:30 p.m. Central Time puck drop. Jamie Thomas off to do another interview. Can't believe it. He owes us coffee next time, Paul.
He's popular.
Yeah, very, very popular.
And you'll have him back for another podcast, backed by popular demand.
Exactly. To wrap this one up as we continue to get ready for Game 4, the Winnipeg Jets can come back in this series and continue to find success if blank.
Well, win Game 4. I think that's first and foremost, and I'll be a little bit more specific on how they do that. Listen, if you don't win this game, and you're not facing elimination until you are into a situation where Vegas has won 3 games and you have to win. But if you don't win in Game 4, now you've got to go and take 3 straight off Vegas to win the series. Vegas has only lost 3 games twice all year. Their longest losing skid was 4. What complicates that scenario is you would have to beat Vegas twice at home within those 3 games that you need to win. So you have to win today. And then, of course, you have a little bit of wiggle room in the next 3 games because it becomes a best of 3. How does Winnipeg do that? I think you build on the emotion that you took from the third period of game number 3 into game number 4. You won't be loose and awestruck with all of what's going on around you in the environment. So you'll be a little bit more singularly focused on playing the game. If you get to speed, as we talk about with the Jets, if they do and they can score a first goal, I think things will roll from that point on. You also need, it's almost like when the Jets would always play against Connor McDavid. And the rule was he's going to get some. He's going to get his. Limit how much he gets, right? So don't give him 10 scoring opportunities. Limit him to 3. So they're going to get fast. They're going to try to attack you off the rush, are the Golden Knights, because that's how they play. You know that's coming. So limit the amount that you give them off the rush. Take away the middle of the ice. Force them outside to the walls. Force them outside the dots, off the rush, and you should be in good stead because shots from there should be stopped by your goaltender. And then if you fall back, recoil to the front of your net, you should be able to clear some rebounds if you've tied up your man coming back in as well. So it's the middle of the ice for me. It needs to be contested. If the Jets do a good job there in eliminating Vegas from getting there like they did in game 1, they will be successful. Other things and other keys, score first, get to your speed game, and force Vegas to play catch-up in your own building. You should be all right.
I think those very words are written in the dressing room, and the Winnipeg Jets will look at them as they head out for game 4.
Every shift matters.
Every shift matters in this series. Paul, thanks for this. I'll thank Jamie, I guess.
Personally.
Even though he abandoned us.
With an email, a text.
Yeah, this feels like an email. You know, we'll keep it professional. He's always good for a round of coffees, though, so I can't be too mad at him. Thanks again for listening to Ground Control episode 160. And we'll keep up with everything going on in this series between the Winnipeg Jets and the Golden Knights as things go.
This has been Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. For more Jets news, videos, and more, head to winnipegjets.com.